Hi folks, Rob here with another Real Deal in the Field with one of my students, Stuart, who's I guess doing this boutique spec build in the middle of Richmond. Mate, this is a heritage building. What are you doing taking on, I guess, a spec reno on a heritage building?
Yeah, it's been an interesting set of challenges here. You can see, for example, heritage in Melbourne particularly, right, as a set of requirements that if you're standing from the other side of the street opposite this property, so where the effect of the camera is, you're not allowed to see any of the renovation behind or any of the build behind, and you have to keep all of the facade, including that beautiful chimney that we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment.
So, and the very reason that we've chosen to stick the camera here right now is to show you that there is nothing to see behind the facade. And then what we're going to do in a sec is we're going to jump out the back and you're going to see what it is that Stuart is actually revealing behind the scenes. So, mate, where are we? So Richmond, I know where Richmond is, but give us some insights into how close we are to absolutely everything.
Well, so we're on the beautiful Richmond Hill, which is a bit of a sort of a secluded spot within, the busy inner eastern part of Melbourne. You've got the MCG across the road, probably about 3 or 4 minutes walk that way. You've 20 minutes walk and you're in the heart of Melbourne City, 40 minutes to South Bank, 6 minutes down to the train station. There's 3 trams and a bus route, plus all the shops on Bridge Road, Swan Street and Victoria Street.
And he's reassured me 3 minutes to the pub as well. So, mate, let's go have a look. So you've mentioned one thing being the chimney. So for those who can't see, there's a chimney up the top there, and that is actually heritage protected. Part of, I guess the process of that facade being protected. Now, what are some of the things that you had to do to protect the chimney?
Yeah, so like everything with heritage, you've got to protect paint colours and everything else. So effectively, that chimney has to remain. So we actually remove the fireplace because the rooms are really small and pokey. I would prefer to keep it otherwise. And so what happens is we've got to keep that chimney intact as is, so you see it here. So as a result, there's about $9,000 worth of steel holding up this chimney, which we might get to see in a moment. And it's probably the world's most expensive ornamental chimney now.
Yeah, so to clearly articulate that, have removed the fireplace, and so the chimney's floating in midair all the way in the sky just so that it looks good from the street. So what we're going to do now, we're going to jump out the back and we're going to see what's on the other side of this heritage facade. Ignoring the weatherboards at the front, folks. Be back in 2 secs. Hey folks, here we are at the back of the property, and as you can see, everything that was hidden before has now been revealed, and we can see, I guess, the size and the extent of the building actually coming to play. And one of the biggest draw cards you saw before, there was absolutely no parking on the street, and what we've got here is a really nice, generously sized off-street car park, which in the heart of Melbourne is really hard to find.
Not to mention it has a terrace on top, Rob, which we can check out later on.
Absolutely. So, mate, watch your head. Construction site active, folks. So how many bedrooms, mate? What's the spec?
So 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom, 2 living, an outside courtyard behind me, and then another terrace above the garage we just mentioned a moment ago, as well as an open kitchen, meals, living. There's a laundry, a pantry, and of course in Melbourne you need underfloor heating for that ultimate luxury, right?
Absolutely. Now, we mentioned heritage before. What are some of the issues that you had to deal with from that heritage space? So for anyone trying to deal with a heritage type building, let's look at some of the challenges that you needed to overcome. So they kind of mandate your colour schemes and all sorts of things, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So mandated colour schemes. You have to keep the original weatherboards. You can't actually necessarily replace them. You have to make them good, so you can't tear those down. The roof line has to be maintained as well across the top. And of course, you need to keep that whole look and feel. So you can probably see some of it through the video, through the construction in the dark is the areas we've had to keep. So working around all of that is quite tricky. Yeah,
but it's the facade that you are keeping. Anything that's behind the facade, as we said before, anything that can be hidden from the street is really open slather. And as you can see, absolutely a whole bunch of brand new construction. So we've unlocked a really massive opportunity here. Now, from an access perspective, we already heard where we are physically located, but I guess 2 street frontage, really a 3rd laneway in order to get in and out. So access in and out of the property is really, really good. The flexibility of actually having a yard which you could technically park a second car if you really, really wanted.
Absolutely. And of course, you've got this this drain culvert down the side here, which acts as a bit of a sort of a pedestrian thoroughfare as well. So only one neighbour on the boundary.
Yep. So really, really good from an access perspective, and a lot of really good amenities. So we're going to pop upstairs and have a look at the chimney hanging in the middle of midair, and try and get a little bit of perspective as to how and where we are. So hang on two secs, folks. We'll come back and show you the rest. Here we are upstairs, folks, and standing on what is effectively the outdoor entertainment area.
Yeah.
I guess a little bit hard to see, but we've got some gorgeous views of the city. I guess overlooking our lovely courtyard, nice big open space, and I guess flowing into the open plan area upstairs, which is the second living area. So quite a lovely design, mate. So all your design, or?
Oh, I have to thank my architect. Can I give him a plug?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Adam Wallage and Mick Sire, architect and builder. So fantastic work from both of them.
Very good. So, mate, what are some of the things that we've tried to maximise up here, other than this beautiful space here?
So the big thing is really maximising space, maximising light. And being in a city, there are two things that are really hard to get right.
Yeah, and because of that, and because we had to hide the heritage facade, so what we've had to do is the rear walls are just slightly tilted in. Mm-hmm. So a bit hard to see from these angles, but you can see both sides. It just kind of tilted in, and from the street, you can see nothing from the street, which is exactly the outcome that you're actually looking for, which then, I guess, creates a lot of light and air in between the buildings. So, like, really used the maximum amount of footprint humanly possible here.
Absolutely. Maximise the building, the allowable building envelope, maximise the site coverage, maximise the building out to both site boundaries, which has been fantastic.
Now, we're going to show you one lucky last thing, folks. We're going to show you that mystical chimney that's just floating in midair, and hopefully it's not too dark in there and we can actually get you to see what's behind the scenes. Back in 2 seconds.
Sounds good. So welcome to the world's most expensive ornamental chimney. This is $9,000 of steel to hold this chimney up, just to maintain the heritage character. Unfortunately, the earthquake that we had recently in Melbourne didn't kind of topple the chimney down. So this is it.
So as you can see, folks, the chimney is actually floating in midair. The steel frame is really just there, I guess, as a support structure holding it up. And if we pivot just very slightly down, you'll see absolutely nothing underneath it. So it's just floating in midair, and I guess all that steel beams holding it up.
The things we do for heritage.
Folks, last part of the building, this is the facade that was actually hidden by all these boarded up stuff when we looked from the front. This is the stuff that I guess is the true heritage part of the building that needs to be protected. So what's the go with all the weatherboards, mate?
Yeah, okay, so heritage says you've got to keep the original weatherboards. You can't even replace them. You just got to make them look good. They have to be repainted. The council has to approve the colour scheme. Otherwise, they have to stay.
So there's elements such as this little fence line and that sort of thing. So I guess the ornamental knobs and all that sort of stuff. The lattice work that sits up here. There's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to actually stay to protect that facade and keep that look and feel. But once you get behind that facade, as you've seen, you're pretty much open slather to kind of, I guess, I'll loosely say rip and replace, to actually modernise the building. So that way from the street, it still looks like it's the part, but I guess we can still have a modern lifestyle, mate.
Modern lifestyle, and the demand from a resale perspective is also in the heritage facade, particularly in the sort of inner urban areas.
Yep.
So it's great from that.
Mate, I can't wait to see the finished product and for seeing this as a real deal at one of our upcoming meetups. So until then, folks, thank you, mate, for sharing your little story with us, and we'll see you all on the next Real Deal in the Field. Bye, folks.